Chapter 2, Lesson 6. Again, there's two parts to 6. Um, to the day one, we're going to take a look at graphing piecewise defined functions. And then tomorrow, we'll take a look at graphing step and absolute value functions. So piecewise. So piecewise function is a function written by two or more expressions. So we kind of have two different graphs going on here with our two equations. So steps to solving, you can see up above. I'm just going to kind of work down through those. And again, if that works good for you, you can follow those steps every single time, okay? Or just find a method that really works for you and kind of stick with that method. So you can see we're going to graph this function. So we have a function, it is in function notation, and we have two different equations. So we have x plus 2 if x is less than 1, so any number less than 1 is x plus 2. If x is greater than or equal to 1, we're going to have the 2x minus 3. Now, you're going to graph them independently. So my first graph I'm going to take a look at here, and I'm going to graph the x plus 2 if x is less than 1. So sometimes it's easy just to kind of sketch it with your pencil and then erase the part you don't need. So when I look at this, I'm going to graph it the exact same way I graphed any other equation. I'm going to start with my y-intercept here at positive 2. And again, if you want to identify that m and that b, b is at 2, m 1. So I'm going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and I'm going to keep on going. Now, here's where this second part comes in. X is less than 1. Well, here's my 1. Okay? So this is my x-axis, right? Here's 1. Now, x is less than 1. So what I'm going to do is this point here needs to be an open circle. So I'm going to have an open circle here. And I'm going to get the numbers less than. So I'm only going to shade. I don't want this part up top. Okay? So I don't want these points up here. So I'm going to get rid of all those points. And I only want the points going down to the left. So I have my graph now. And I can take this and I can start my line, maybe. Make sure everything's good. So here we go. And I can start my line. And I'm only going down to the left, so I should be going the other direction. And I gotta change my arrow. Alright. I'm going down to the left, and my slope is the same. My line looks the same, but I have an open circle there at that 1. Okay? Because again, 1 is not included. So there's my 1, my first graph. I'm going to make that blue so it matches. Everything's blue now for that first equation. So my second equation now is here. So my y-intercept is at negative 3, so m is 2, b is at negative 3. So again, I'm going to graph it now. Normal method here, starting at negative 3, up 2 over 1. Again, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. And I can keep going as many times as I want. And again, now these are numbers greater or equal to 1. So again, where 1 is, here's 1. I'm going to put a closed circle here. I don't need anything less than that, so I can get rid of this bottom point at negative 3. And I'm only going up to the right. So again, I can grab my line tool. And that looks like it's good. We'll make it red to match. Again, I have a closed circle this time. And there's my graph. So now you can see here's my piecewise function. So this value here is going to be where my starting points are for both graphs. So 1. So x equals 1. Both points, one's open because it's not included, one's solid because it is included. My graphs then continue in the direction greater than or less than. Okay? So again, we're graphing the equations the exact same way. I'm just getting rid of part of the graph. Let's go do one more here together. So again, here's my part of the graph I'm looking at here. X is less than 3, so x minus 1. So my m is 1, b is negative 1. So starting at negative 1, going up 1 over 1. Okay, and again, my graph only is really at 3, so it starts at 3. So 1, 2, 3. So here's my graph. And again, this is less than or equal to. Okay, that's what I'm reading here. So at 3 is a solid circle. I'm going to make it a little bigger. And it's less than, so it's actually going down to the left. So now I can grab my tool here, still on red, and I'm just taking the part that's going down to the left. And there's my graph. And again, I don't need these points up top because my graph stops here at x equals 3. Now I'm going to do the second part here. So again, y equals negative 1. So again, I can look at my m and my b. My b here is negative 1. My m, I don't have an x value, so my m ends up being a 0. So we kind of have a special line here, right? So we have a horizontal line. So horizontal, so I'm just looking at b value being at negative 1, horizontal, and again, it's greater than 3. So at 3, my x is at negative 1, or I'm sorry, my x is at 3, y is at negative 1, so it's an open circle there. And since it's just a horizontal line, I'm just going either straight left or straight right. So in this case, we're just going to go, it's greater than 3, so we're going to go to the right. And we'll change my color. And I'm just going straight left. Or I'm sorry, straight right. And so there's my graph. So again, open circle here with the horizontal line, closed circle with the x minus 1 graph. And again, we're just chopping those graphs in half, or wherever that tells us here on our inequality at 3 here in this case. So now, what if we're given graphs? How can I write these equations? Okay, so biggest thing is hopefully this all starts out the same. So we can we can just set up our function notation. So we have f of x equals, and we're going to have two equations. So I have my little squiggly line, my bracket. And again, for each equation, I'm going to color code this. This is going to be my purple line here, okay? I need an M and a B. So M and a B for purple line. Well, it's nice because they give us the B value here at 1. And then my slope is up 1 over 1. So my slope is 1 as well. So my equation here is y equals 1x plus 1. Now, in this case, we need to come up with, if I go back to the other one, I need to come up with this inequality statement here, okay? So I'm going to say if x, and in this case, where is this value at? If I'm looking here, I'm going to put a little dotted line on my graph here. X equals 1, okay? So these dots, the starting of the graphs, are at 1. So when x equals 1, Move this out of the way here. Is my inequality. Now, in this first purple graph, x is less than 1. It's everything behind, so 0, -1. So less than, and it's open circle, so it's just less than. So now let's take a look here at my second equation. So here's my second equation. It's green. Now for this one, we may need to extend this out a little bit. So if I extend this graph out, because I want to find that y-intercept that doesn't cross the y-axis. So if I look at my slope here, so this slope here, we have up 1 over 1, so it's 1. So if I go the other direction, I'm going to go down 1, left 1. Oh, there's my y-intercept. So my b value would be at -1. So my equation then is m is 1, so 1x, b is -1, minus 1. There's my equation. And if x, and again that's still 1, because that's where my point is, and it's a solid circle, and it's everything to the right. So numbers to the right, so x is greater than or equal to that 1. And there's my equations. Let's try letter B. So again, set it up in function notation. It doesn't matter which one you have here first here. We can use the one that's less than here. So we have a solid circle here. So it's horizontal line, so that means my slope is 0. Y-intercept, if I went straight across, would be at 1. So in this case, it's just y equals 1, just a number. If, when. So x is what? Less than, and we have a solid circle here at 2, right? Solid circle. If x is less than or equal to -2. So any value less than -2 here, going to be on my graph. So now my second equation then, go green. So it's going up here. So my m here, I can count. So up 1 over 1. So slope is 1. Slopes aren't always going to be 1. Okay. My b value, here it goes through the origin. So b is, my y-intercept is 0. So in this case, 1x or just x plus 0, don't need the 0 on there, so I'm not going to write it. So y equals x is my equation. If x, in this case, open circle down here, it's a little harder to see, open circle here at -2, x is greater than -2. And there's my two equations. All right, so you have graphing piecewise functions and writing the equation for piecewise functions. Okay. Tomorrow we'll take a look at step functions and absolute value functions. Okay. And you can see the homework again at the bottom of the page on the right. 2-6 worksheet A.